Hey guys, Miss Moore here, ready to continue on with our book, Bees Matter. So today I'm just going to read the last two chapters of this book, and while I read, I want you to be jotting down a couple facts that you read with me or you hear from me, and just jot them down on a sheet of paper. So if you need to pause the video, pause it, and go get a sheet of paper or your journal or whatever you're writing on and get ready to take some notes. Anything that you think is interesting, okay? So just any facts that you hear while you write, okay? So I'm going to go on, make our book bigger. All right, so we've read lots about bees. We've read about how they're on the decline. We've read about what they're good for, what they do, how they pollinate the flowers. That gives us the food and vegetables from crops and things. So today we're going to read a little bit more about that in chapter 3, and then we'll read chapter 4 and finish it up. Living without bees. As pollinators, bees have important jobs. Flowering plants count on them for reproduction and for growing fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are an important food source for larger animals. In this way, threats to bee health affect all living things in an ecosystem. Since bees are bioindicators, their decline warns of a larger problem. Remember that word bioindicator tells us things about the ecosystem. Variety lost. Today, going through the produce section of a grocery store is a colorful experience. The aisles are full of different smells and textures, but the experience would be much more dreary without bees to pollinate plants. Many beautiful and delicious foods would be scarce. Without bees, refrigerators would be without apples. Kitchens would not be stocked with coffee beans. Even dairy products would be affected. Dairy cows eat alfalfa and clover. These plants count on leafcutter bees, bumblebees, and honeybees for pollination. So if you look over here at this chart, it says more than honey. This chart shows to what degree U.S. crops depend on honeybees. It also shows how much each crop was worth in 2014. So 100% of almonds are pollinated by honeybees. So without honeybees, we wouldn't have almonds. And look at how high some of these are. Apples, oranges, sweet cherries, peaches, tangerines, grapefruits. So bees are definitely important. Alternatives to natural pollution. With fewer bees, some farmers try other ways of pollinating. Some practice pollen dusting. In this method, farmers spray pollen over a field from an aircraft. Pollen dusting is not often used because of its high cost. It also produces a lower percentage of fruit. Other farmers pollinate by hand because there are not enough bees. Some apple farmers in China pollinate their crops using tiny paintbrushes. This method leads to a huge increase in the cost of apples. People cannot afford such large increases in food cost. Also, there are not enough people to hand pollinate all crops. Whew, that sounds difficult. Migratory beekeeping. A growing number of farmers are using migratory beekeepers. Migratory beekeeping is when hives are loaded onto trucks and sent to farms. Farmers pay per hive. They schedule to have the bees shipped in for pollination season. Migratory beekeeping allows a single bee to pollinate in many areas. Almond blossoms in California require huge numbers of bees. Beekeepers bring honeybees from all over the country for the job. So if you migrate, you go from one place to another place. So these bees are going from one place to another place. Those same bees are shipped to Michigan to pollinate blueberries in the summer. In the fall, they may travel to Texas to pollinate pumpkins. This can have a harmful effect on the bees. Like all animals, there are natural patterns in a bee's life. Living in different parts of the country in a single year can change these patterns. Shipping bees can also spread illnesses that could have been kept in one area. Even with careful transport, hives can become stressed and weak. World's largest bee migration. Every year, more than half of all honeybees across the United States are shipped to California to pollinate almonds. The state has more than 1,000 square miles of almond trees, and almond flowers have only a 5-day window for pollination. It takes a huge number of bees to do the job. Farmers pay up to $200 for each hive. With more than 1.5 million hives needed, the cost quickly adds up. This high price gets passed on to people who buy almonds at the store. Interesting. Money matters. Pollination once happened without farmers giving it a second thought, but without healthy local bees, many farmers must find other ways to grow their crops. This adds a new side to farm management. Farmers may keep their own bees, bring in hives, or even change crops. Any action takes time and money. Around the world, people demand affordable food. Farmers compete to grow crops that can be sold at lower prices, but as bee populations drop, the cost of nuts, fruits, and vegetables will continue to rise. The realistic outlook. It is unlikely that bees will die off completely, but there are big concerns on the horizon. If bee numbers keep dropping, many plants will become hard to find and too costly to grow. Eating a healthy diet may become more difficult for families around the world. Beyond the bees. The falling bee population indicates environmental changes that could have widespread effects. When bees are exposed to chemicals such as pesticides, other creatures are also likely exposed. Predators such as hawks feed on small animals. Hawks can become sick if they eat animals containing high levels of pesticides. Remember that food chain you've learned about in science? Rain can wash pesticides into ponds and rivers. The chemicals can kill off frogs, fish, and water insects. Animals that count on these animals for food also suffer. Shrinking bee numbers can be the first sign the health of an ecosystem is in danger. Studying bees is one way scientists can recognize areas that are at risk. The global threat of habitat loss. Bees are far from the only animal suffering from habitat loss. Habitat loss is when the natural ecosystem of an animal is changed and no longer supports that animal's needs. When one animal is affected, animals that depend on it are also affected. Habitat loss is considered by many to be the world's greatest threat to wildlife. I'm going to skip this little excerpt, but if you want to pause and read it, go for it. And Chapter 4, almost done. Planning a brighter future. Remember to be jotting down your facts as I read. 2 or 3 facts. The bee population around the globe is dropping. The good news is humans can do much to change the trend. Big changes are already being made to help bees. Bee numbers are still going down but have started to level out around the world. Beekeeping practices. Honeybees' first line of defense is the people caring for them, the beekeepers. The challenges facing honeybees have changed. Beekeepers' management practices must also change. Regular checks for parasites and illness are important. Quick and proper treatment can save colonies. Hive health is now tracked across the United States through the Bee-Informed Partnership. Beekeepers voluntarily report on their colonies throughout the year. Keeping an eye on bee numbers and health helps guide protective actions. Rooftop hives, back up to the top. Beekeepers do not need to live in rural areas. Hives take up only a few square feet. Urban beekeeping has become common. In Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, and many more cities, beekeepers have set up rooftop hives with honeybees. In 2010, New York City lifted a ban on beekeeping. And in 2015, Los Angeles received growing support for allowing backyard beekeeping. So even the big cities are getting into it. Wow. Government intervention. That means the government is getting in the middle of it. Since 2007, National Pollinator Week has highlighted the importance of bees. Tours, honey tastings, educational hikes, and other family-friendly activities allow for a first-hand understanding of pollinators. The U.S. government created the Pollinator Health Task Force in 2014. In May 2015, the task force released a national strategy to promote the health of bees and other pollinators. The strategy lays out plans for bee research, public outreach, and land management. Proper use of chemicals. People can lower the harmful effects of pesticides by using them at the proper time and using the correct method. These things are based on the natural cycles of surrounding plants and animals. The labels of some pesticides are being rewritten to help protect bees. For example, some labels will tell farmers to apply pesticides only after the plants have flowered and the petals have fallen. This gives bees time to gather nectar and pollen before any chemicals are applied. Sustainable farming. Sustainable farming is a way to grow food through techniques that help the environment. These methods are becoming more common. Nationwide programs are researching the side effects of monocrop farming. Remember, that's one crop. The goal is to understand its effects and develop alternatives to pesticides. Biopesticides are one alternative. These are chemicals made with only natural ingredients. Remember, bio means life, so that would go with natural. Biopesticides pose less of a threat to pollinators and are gaining popularity. Let's read this box next. Perspectives, biopesticides. Biopesticides often target a particular pest using only natural ingredients, but natural does not always mean safe. Research on long-term effects is ongoing. Some substances that were once considered harmless are now thought to be toxins. New products come out often. Gardeners, park rangers, landscape companies, and homeowners all use chemicals on plants. Keeping up with new findings and staying knowledgeable is important for everyone, not just farmers. Small changes add up. Everyone can make decisions that help bees. Homeowners can plant flowers that attract pollinators. People can avoid spraying unnecessary chemicals around their properties. Doing these things helps bees that visit gardens and yards. People can buy produce from organic farms. These types of farms grow food with natural pest control methods and promote plant diversity. The future. Low bee populations show that the ecosystem has been disrupted. This message is finally being heard. If people continue to take steps to protect bees, bee numbers can be stabilized. The relationship between bees, plants, and the ecosystem as a whole can be restored. As the bee population gains strength, the plants flourish. In turn, the plants provide nutrients to humans and other animals that rely on them. Bees matter. Bees keep food in our farm fields, our grocery stores, and our stomachs. Healthy bees not only feed the world, they also foretell the future of many living things within an ecosystem. Okay, we're going to stop there. We've got some fast facts. If you want to pause and look at that, you can. Then we've got some stop and think questions and a glossary. Remember, it has some glossaries have definitions of vocab words. And that's it. So, what I want you to do now, you have been taking some notes. You have a couple of facts written down, things that you wanted to remember. Next, what I want you to do is some research. So go to Google, and I want you to research some more about bees. So remember in class, if we want to research something, I've taught you to type in what you want to research, and you can always add kids on the end to make sure you get kid-friendly sites. So you've got some videos here that you can watch, and then you've got some websites you can click on. So let's go down to 10 facts about honeybees. And you might even want to type in honeybees to be more specific, but if you want to tell me, research more about other types of bees, you can do that too. Okay, go away. Well, I can't see my button. There it is. All right, so now what I want you to do is once you find your website or your video or whatever you want to research on, I want you to jot down some more notes. See what else you can find about honeybees. Can you find something that you didn't learn about in the book we read? Tell me about honeybees. And then I want you to start a Google Doc. And remember, make sure you always title it up at the top too, so it doesn't just say untitled document. And that way you'll be able to find it easy. And I want you to write a paragraph or two about what you've learned about honeybees. Like I said, if you want to tell me about the other types of bees, you can. Just make sure you're specific so I know what you're talking about. But just write a paragraph or two about what you've learned. So you've taken some notes from the book. You can always get on Epic and go back and look through the book and read some more. You can use Google. You can watch some of the videos on YouTube. Tell me more about the honeybees. Tell me about what does a honeybee do? What is happening to honeybees? Why? You can tell me, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, but what can humans do to help honeybees? And then you can tell me anything else you thought was interesting about bees. Okay, so you're basically just going to write a couple paragraphs, 1 to 2 paragraphs about what you learned about bees. And this is RI.5.9, integrate information from several texts on the same topic in order to write or speak about the subject knowledgeably. So we read a book. You're going to look at internet web sources, and you can look at video sources if you want. And that's several different resources to integrate information, which means put all that information together into one product. You're going to write about it. Okay? So if you have any questions, just send me an email or let me know what you need. And I'm going to post a assignment on Google Classroom where you can upload this. Okay? Have fun writing!